last week, we started by defining leadership as a process. And part of that was very much about the need to see something greater than simple traits or something that you come to the table with as a leader. You can come to as a leader and go, I'm going to be a leader. Everything's going to be great. But if you don't have people who you relate with, who are going to be your followers, even if it's in a short term, like one of the big major things to understand about this process is it doesn't have to be a long-term process. It might just be half an hour. It might just be 5 minutes. 5 minutes is kind of short, but like half hour. But during that time, you can see a process taking place where the person who did not have influence or did not have a position that gives them the ability to dictate events suddenly come up and go, I have an idea. Let's go this way. And people choose to follow that. And there's a process by which that happens. And it involves a great deal of adaptability by the leader and also by the followers. Because they have to change their mind. Right? They have to change their mind. Now, how someone acts as a leader is a huge part of that. It's something we're going to talk about. But it's not just about how they act as leader. It's also about how people follow. Right? It's about where are they developmentally. One of the things we're seeing right now, for instance, in the Ukraine, okay, let's take the Ukraine as our example, is that there are people who developmentally, they are not fighters. But for other reasons, they are willing to follow. Why? Because they perceive the world in a specific way and they don't like the way the world is changing. And so they have come to the point where they see somebody say, hey, I want us to go that way, and they are following. What would have happened if he'd raised his hands? The president of Ukraine goes, all right, we give up. All done. If he'd done that at the get-go and not presented a fight, would everyone have followed? I think a lot of people would have. A lot of people would have. Everybody? No. But a lot of people would have. But he didn't. Instead, he came out and said, this is my home. You're not taking it. I'm putting up fight. And he said, hey, everybody, we're doing this together. And he literally got the entire populace, a good part of the populace, to get together and be willing to fight the fight. So leadership is a process. It's not a once off and it's done. He still has to demonstrate fight throughout over time. Because if at some point he gives up, that will significantly influence the followers. Right? Make sense? Okay. So, as we go through this, we're going to talk about things like power, like we did last week, and we're going to talk about things like managers. Managers are not followers. They're not. They can be followers, and they're also not leaders necessarily. They may be leaders. He's not managing the war. He's got people who manage the war for him. He's leading the war.
What are you talking about?
What does it mean to lead then? I feel like it's confusing.
Why?
I feel like when you lead maybe I don't really know the exact definition, but managing, I think of like to manage something. There's certain things you have to get done, and you figure out ways to
Do you think that the president of the Ukraine right now is sitting there going, I want tanks moving here, and these guys moving there, and this moving there, and this moving there, and these guys doing this, and these guys doing that?
No.
So what is he doing?
He's saying that he has a bigger objective, primary goal.
It's a face.
He's not just a face. He's definitely more than that at this point.
So him and whoever he's working with would be organizing what do they want to do ultimately?
Right. And then who's actually the people who are in charge of making sure that happens?
Managers. So what is the leadership? The leadership just says this is what we're going to do, but then don't do anything?
No, not necessarily. Because leaders' job is to continue that relationship over time. Mm-hmm. It's to continue the relationship over time. They have to continually be in contact and continually know what's going on with their followers and support them and give them motivation and help them when they come up against a roadblock which is too much for them to handle, be able to bring in other managers and say, you know what, I think we need, hey, manager dudes, I think we need more supplies here. I don't want a Tremp. I want Guns. What's he saying? I understand what my people need. I don't need to escape. I don't need to run away. I need to make sure that my people have the resources they need. That wasn't a managerial function, though. He's not going to sit there and distribute those guns. He's not going to make sure who gets them. He's going to make sure that they get to the country so that his followers can get what they need. He sees the path. He understands where a roadblock is, and he's trying to overcome that roadblock to the best of his ability. Does that make sense? So leaders, here's the thing. When we use the term leader, sometimes we mean manager and sometimes we mean leadership. It's a very obscure concept. Like, you sit there and go, wait a second. I don't know if obscure is the right word. Like, it's a very fuzzy concept. Because you go, is this one the leader? He's the guy who's in charge of delineating timelines and making sure everything happens on time and making sure we all hit all our objectives and da-da-da. Or is he the leader, the guy who came up with the great idea and got us all on board and keeps us going and, you know, sees when there's a problem and just steps up and figures out how to resolve it? Which one of them is the leader? Sort of both of them, right? Which is why when we think about leadership, it's really a unit. And sometimes that unit is two people, right? One of those people might be the manager or position leader or something like that. And the other one is the thought leader, the person who's the problem solver, the person who's able to convince other people that this is the best way to get things done. Do you see the difference? And how they kind of work together? Sometimes you have to be both.
Yes, I was gonna say.
Sometimes you don't have a choice.
I feel like a lot of times leaders are mad.
Sometimes, very often managers, right, sometimes people will get into a position of manager and realize, oh man, that means I also have to be a leader. It's not enough for me to be really good at, or the opposite happens. Somebody is raised in an organization and they go, oh, this guy's really good at leadership. He's good at people getting things done and helping people figure out how to resolve their issues. And he's really good at, you know, talking to people and convincing them. But the moment they get into the position of manager and they have to deal with things like scheduling and time framing and resources and limits on resources and all that other stuff, they go, I'm stuck. I'm not good at this. It's one of the major things we see sometimes in hierarchies, in businesses. People rise to the point where they're no longer capable of holding that position because they just don't have the skills to do it anymore. They don't have the capacity to do it.
That's Biden.
I have no comment. Okay? So managers are not necessarily leaders. Leaders generally need someone who can do managerial things, right? Now, sometimes it's going to be the leader, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not. So when we think about it, okay, we can look at this and say, okay, there's a difference here between assigned leadership and emergent leadership. That's a concept we're going to talk about in depth. When you have an assigned position, you put someone in an assigned position, you go, okay, you're in charge.
It's like a king and his son.
Yeah, a king and his son. If he doesn't teach his son how to be a good leader,
He'll still be assigned, though.
he'll be assigned, but is that going to be good for his country? Not unless he's got really good managers who are able to convince him about the best way to do it. If he learns to listen, right? It's like the CEO of a company and passes away and his son inherits and now becomes the CEO of the company. And if the son hasn't learned what it means to run the company, hasn't learned that lesson in depth, hasn't learned how to relate to the people, right? So when we look at this assigned versus emergent leader, we need to consider what it means about power. A person who's assigned can have lots of power, but not have vision. Or might have vision and might not be able to express that vision effectively. What if you've got vision? I know where we want to go. I know how I want to get there. I know the direction we're going to take. I know all of that. But I'm a bad communicator. I don't know how to convince you to be on board with me. What does that do to us? It ruins the relationship. It makes the relationship really hard. It impacts the process of reaching vision and goal that leadership is supposed to be striving for. Okay? So this leads us to some significant questions about the difference between leadership and management. And we've looked at this. We said, okay, managers, they're great at planning and budgeting and organizing and staffing and controlling and problem solving, while leaders, they establish direction. They say, we're going that way. We're going to do that. That's how we want the world to look, right? I'm going to make sure that you and you and you, even though you come from different backgrounds, with different skill sets, with different moral and cultural backgrounds, are all going to be on board to move in that direction with me. Or for me. Not necessarily with me even. Just for me. Right? And it's about motivating and inspiring. This is a difference between management and leadership. This is the difference between being in a position where you simply were told you're in charge and emerging as a leader. Now, you can emerge as a leader after you've been put in charge, right? Some people just step up and they go, you know what, you're in charge of this, and they go, okay, and then all of a sudden they're really open up and they're able to do that. Sometimes they don't. So when we look at management and leadership, right, what we're talking about is setting things like objectives, defining and prioritizing, right? But then we start looking at, okay, what management really does is it looks at the means. Management takes that vision and breaks it down and goes, okay, well, if you want me to get from here to there, here's how I can do it. I'm going to have these resources, and it's going to take about this much time. And, I'm going to judge success based on these metrics, these KPIs, or these key results. Did we hit our goals? Were the tasks done? Did we meet objectives? Then vision should be manifest, as long as whoever our opponents are on the field play along. Right? Competition on the field matters. In the military, it matters significantly because there the friction is very direct and impactful. When you have a competition between Google and Apple, some of that competition is over resources, like who can they hire? Some of that is over things like metrics. We have X amount of users. We've got X amount of people downloading stuff from our apps, of our programming, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We've made X amount of money. Right? So what happens is this is cyclical. Objectives get set, means are established to hit those objectives. This is how we're going to do it. Here's the resources you have. Here's the limitations on those resources. We put those limits in terms of methodology. We say, are we going to be proactive or are we going to be reactive? Make sense? And that leads us to the point where we get to support. Okay, we get feedback, we orient, and we discipline about it. Yo, dude, you're not pulling your weight. You're not doing your job right. Step up. Now, managers sometimes will say things like, step up or you're fired. Leaders, hopefully, will say things like, I see you're having a problem. What can I do to help you overcome this? Will leaders sometimes need to threaten? Yes. Look, if you're not going to be with us, then you're against us. That's a leadership statement. That's not a managerial one.
What about if you don't finish this in time, you're fired?
Well, how does that sound to you? Does that sound like something that a leader should be saying or a manager? Manager more than a leader, no? Now, leaders might sometimes say, listen, if you're not going to be able to do this, then you need to take a step aside and let someone else who can do this get it done.
So you're saying a leader should never toss?
I'm not saying that. Leaders will sometimes have to say to someone, listen, you are negatively impacting our group. You're holding us back. But he's not doing it as a function of you didn't meet your quota, therefore you're fired. It's you're holding us back from meeting vision. The way he's talking about it is different.
If you and Zell and Josh go to amusement park and you guys want to go on the roller coaster, but Josh is with you, sometimes you try to toss him.
Josh doesn't like roller coasters, I guess. Oh, great. So the two of them are like, Zale, go beat it.
No, it's only me. I like them. Did you like them? I thought you did. I did.
All right. So this is about orientation and discipline, right? It's about discipline. It's about coming back into it. It's about coming back into it and going back again and being like, okay, where are we going from here? So what I want to do is I'm going to divide you guys into two groups. Is the young lady who was here coming back? Great. So we're going to do 4. Which of the gentlemen is going to be with the ladies?
Give them Benny.
Give them Benny.
No, I'll go.
Okay, Josh, you're going to go be with the ladies.
Always flirting.
Go on, go sit over there. Al, come on over here so that you're separated enough so that we don't have problems. Come on. We're going to wait for her to come back. Do you understand, though, the idea that I'm presenting to you about the difference between management and leadership?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, so here's the question. Who's going to be your nominal leader? What did I just ask for?
Harry.
You're asking for a manager.
Nominal leader, yeah. I did.
What do you say?
I asked for a manager. I asked who's your nominal leader. What does it mean? Who's your position leader? Who's the person who I get to turn to and go, you have 5 minutes to get this done? So, who's your nominal leader?
I guess I am.
Figure it out. I would like you guys to figure out who your nominal leader is. I will not appoint someone. If you voted already, Harry's like, I got voted in. I don't have no choice. Fine. All right.
What's the objective?
Without using your computers, so close. It just is easy separation here in the classroom. Do you want to separate it another way? Go ahead. It literally separated it like this. It was like, cut it in half and go like this. I could have just said Ayal, and I was like, I'm not going to say someone has to do this because I don't want it to be that way. But it had nothing to do with it. It was simply the function of... It's also, sometimes, I'll be honest, it's fun to see what happens when you've got a large group of women together and a large group of guys together, and you see how they come up with things differently. This should be interesting. No, this should be interesting. Okay, I'm going to start a timer in a moment.
What are we trying to do?
I will show you. We're not going to wait for her to come back, so we're going to start. Your job, and this is a group challenge, is to tell me, without looking at your computer, close your computers. Close them. No phones. Take out your phone and you're in deep, deep doo-doo. No phones.
Oh, no phones.
No phones. No computers. You have 5 minutes to come up with an explanation how to make toast.
On it or no? Can we like?
How to make toast.
But does that mean how to make the
How,
and the toast?
how to make toast.
Can we write it?
Yes, you may write it on paper.
We have to write it. We're presenting
No,
it.
you have to present. You're going to come up on the board and you're going to present it.
Wait, and if there's a nominal leader, does that mean there's another leader?
I don't know. You tell me. I don't care. You have 5 minutes. All right, let me be more specific. You will draw a picture of how to make, toast. Yes. No, I want a drawn picture.
I think the bread is already made in the scenario.
No, it's not.
Yeah, because you're not making bread.
All right.
How do you get toast? The bread.
So you put the bread in the toaster.
Exactly.
I think that's
Gotta make bread.
Are we? Is it how to make bread or toast?
I didn't say that.
It's just how to make toast.
How to make toast.
Yeah, there's no. Doesn't need to be bread.
You have to draw a picture, a diagram, something that tells me how to make toast. I don't care. How do you make toast? I don't want you to write me I want to see it visually. And then you're going to come up and draw it on the board.
You see, we could go.
You all, what do you use? Toaster?
Things where you
I use the toaster. I'll make the
I don't know. Isn't this annoying?
They use spring toaster. Modern ones spring toaster.
I didn't say you can't write. I said you have to draw. I didn't say you can't write. Don't put words in my mouth.
you can see it.
There's 1 minute left. Would you like an extension?
You said 10 minutes.
I said 5 minutes to start out. It's 10 minutes in total for the whole project. I'd like to get you guys up there in 10 minutes. Like,
Another part.
yeah, 10 minutes in total for the whole challenge. Would you like an extension? Great. If I'm giving you an extension, then the position leaders can grant 1 extra point at the end of the school year for one of the students who they feel did the most work.
Hold on, let me start drawing.
The nominal leader right now in this group is you, I said. You said, right? Josh? So Josh and Harry can both grant someone an extra point. Yeah, an extra 2 points to their final grade. Not the final grade, the lowest grade in their that they got. So if they got a 75 on their paper, they're getting a 77. Oh man, it became a girls versus boys thing. I told you it would be. That's so sad. That- That's so sad.
No, but that's true. I don't think I could make one.
Yeah, no, it's
There's so many, like half of the art. I don't know.
All the artists that just like pop up in my
the
head.
men are the important ones, so you know.
I think we've just like only learned men in art class.
Yeah.
But like that's not true.
He is so disappointed in our education. Look at us.
It says something about it says something about how education has been taught, like how art has been taught for the last 100 years.
Honestly, when someone says Pablo, the first thing I go to the backyard again is over Pablo Picasso.
Why is Pablo Escobar? Someone says Pablo.
What's our group team name?
Pablo Escobar. Turn toaster.
Toasty.
Oh, it's not 4B.
The Toasty Toasters.
Toaster on, and you just say wait.
What's the time on the clock, dog?
1 minute.
On.
100%.
Wait till it pops up.
Alright. How's your drawing going over there?
So bad.
Be concerned with yourself.
We're done.
We're done. We've been done. We don't need to be
Okay,
concerned.
so whatever, dude. But you got it.
What did you say, Marie?
I'm supporting.
Yeah, this doesn't seem like too much of a group effort here. Both two of you are on your phones.
Yeah, what is this?
I think we're good. True.
Wait, what?
All right,
Definitely birthday toast.
Okay.
you done? Great. One representative comes up and draws how to do it without anybody from the group
Oh, draws how to do it?
on the board.
Sherelle.
Alright.
Comes up,
I guess I'll-
draws it on the board, no talking.
alright.
No talk. Writing?
No talking.
Do you have a-
But writing?
I do. I have markers. You're welcome. I have colors too.
Wow.
You may use anything here that you need.
Thank you so much.
All right. Before you start explaining it, I'm going to ask some questions. When I first gave you the assignment, besides draw me how to make toast, there were no other constraints, right? How did that feel?
Confusing.
It's a little confusing, right? So you start asking questions, right? How do I do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do that? Once you have that, you started moving, right? You're like, was the person who was your nominal leader, your manager, your leader?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. So who was your leader? Who is the leader in your group? Think about what the leader's job is. The leader's job is to direct the process. Not necessarily delegate, direct the process. Who's the leader in your group? Who established vision for you? What it was going to look like?
Mainly Sherelle.
Sure.
I don't think anyone. I don't think we have a single leader in our group.
Did leadership change around?
I don't think we have one.
I mean, I started drawing. I don't know.
Does that make you the leader?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Cheryl, were you the drawer or the leader?
A little bit of both, I think.
Did you guys even discuss vision
We did as I was drawing.
as you were drawing?
We discussed before.
Discussed it before? How much?
A little bit. We were like, should we start with how to make the bread or just how to make the toast?
Right? So you're looking for where's our mutual starting point? Where are we going to go from here, right? Now, the outcome of that discussion and everything that you did is on the board. Looking at this, if I wanted to make toast, would I be able to do this? Let's start over here. I'm not judging your... I'm going to understand that that's bread that's sliced, okay? So somehow, we have bread that's sliced. We're not sure where we got it. We're not sure where it comes from. It magically appears. And the bread that's sliced has a hand that comes in and grabs a slice
Or a book. However you imagine.
or a book and puts it into a magical machine. And then that magical machine eats it by pushing down on this. And then it burps.
Yeah.
And where's my toast?
It's in there.
Where's my toast? What am I supposed to do? Like it just it's it
That is true. You did say how to make toast, not how to eat toast.
true, but it I don't see toast.
But toast
I,
See the toast from the
I,
top.
I, I don't see toast.
It's a bird's eye view. It's a bird's eye view.
Are those the bird's eyes?
No, it's not a
Look,
bird's eye
you
view.
see the little.
But the steam and you see the
Oh, that's the actual.
yeah, that's toast.
Oh, okay. Is it done?
Yeah. Might be a little overdone.
It might be a little bit overdone. Okay.
Well, now if we don't take it out,
It's facts. It's just getting worse and worse.
There's a house.
That's the bakery.
Shush, it's a house. I don't know what it is. There's no words.
No words.
It's a house. Or it's a building. And there's a loaf of bread
with money.
that costs lots and lots of money. And it's inside the house.
Exactly.
And then inside that house, there's a machine that looks like a zombie. And you take whole loaves of bread and put them into the machine. That's not a sliced loaf.
The loaf.
That's not a sliced loaf. Where did it get sliced along the way? It is. That's not sliced. That's sliced. That's not sliced. Not sliced. Okay, hold on. A whole loaf of bread somehow gets stuck into the top of this machine. Not sure how that happens. And then something happens, and there's a piece of bread on a plate. Where'd the plate come from?
Yeah, what?
Oh.
At least we
Okay,
got a plate.
hold on.
We don't need a plate.
Hold on. This one shows a process a little bit more in depth than this one does, correct?
Yeah.
But that's not the point of the exercise.
No, it's not.
The point of the exercise is to ask another question. When I added the point of someone here is going to get 2 extra points, how did you all feel? What did it do to you? Did it change how you wanted to react to what was going on? Well, you're the nominal leader. You can't do anything about it. Did it change how you were responding to your people? Did it change how you saw the people? No. Not at all? Did it change how you saw them? How did it change your interactions with each other? What was the first response? Benny had the first response. Everyone heard it. What did Benny say? Yeah, Benny said, give me the paper so that
Yeah, so we can do even.
so I can get some of it, right? Did that happen over here?
No.
Why not?
She already started the process.
Uh-huh.
And she was, I guess you could say the nominal leader for drawing the.
She was you assigned that to her, or she took it on herself?
I assigned it to. We kind of just put it up, like who wants to draw. She took on the.
Okay. So you established we have to do a drawing. Who wants to do this? And you looked for a volunteer, which is a very leadership thing to do. Not so much manager. You didn't say you're drawing. You said who wants to. Okay, ladies, why didn't you want to draw?
I don't know how to.
Me neither. Look at that.
So what? That's not the point.
I don't want to.
Okay, now here's the question. When I said 2 extra points, did that change your position at all? Did you want to suddenly maybe draw? Or take part in it, or do something? I'm asking. Did you want to?
Wait, is that true? Did they actually get 2 extra?
Yes, you're getting 2 extra. Someone's getting 2 extra points. You don't get to decide. He gets to decide.
No, I know.
No, he gets to decide.
I know, but it's
Now here's the real question. How does it feel to be the person who has to choose who's going to get it? Is it easy for you?
In this circumstance, yes. Because Sherelle.
Would you agree with whatever he's going to decide? Are you going to accept whatever he decides? Are you going to accept whatever he decides? All right, gentlemen. How easy is it for you, Harry, to decide amongst your brethren who's going to get the 2 extra points?
Considering he was not registered for the class,
50-50.
that's easy. And then, it's not, I guess, not the easiest decision. You're asking me how hard of a decision.
I'm asking you, how difficult is this as a decision for you?
None of us will be hurt. We'll all just hate you.
It's semi, like,
All right. First of all, you don't have to announce it. Now, if you don't have to tell me, does it make it easier? If you don't have to tell them, you just have to tell me. Does it make it easier? They'll never know.
I don't really think so.
It won't make it any easier?
But then they're gonna be wondering. I don't think it matters that. I don't think it's so significant that like it's like.
I mean, it could be the difference between like a 79 and an 81 on a paper, which is worth 40% of your grade.
I think Harry should keep it for himself.
Okay. So this leads us to a very interesting point, and you will tell me later, who gets the 2 points. The question is, who says you're the leader? There is a question, a function of legitimacy in leadership that comes to play here. I nominated people. I said, nominal leader, nominal leader. But in reality, Sherelle sort of dictated vision there. Josh didn't dictate vision. Not only did Sherelle dictate vision, but then she also implemented vision.
I'd say she implemented vision, she didn't dictate vision.
Okay. Did she guide vision?
Yeah.
Okay.
But so did everyone in the group.
I didn't say that other people didn't partake in vision, establishing vision, but the leader is the person who's guiding that process. It was a 5-minute process, 7-minute process. But
That's what you were talking about before, no? Nominal.
yeah,
Not nominal, the
position
steps up and
position leadership versus emergent leader.
Yeah.
Position leader. I made Harry the leader. Did Harry sit there and go, you do this, you do that? No. Did he wait to see who was going to step up to the plate and do the thing? Now, who stepped up here to start vision?
Yeah, there's a king of real.
Right? He started the vision. He said, I have an idea. It's going to look like this. I even heard him say, we're going to make some, what did you call it? Slides, right? Your frames, right? You said it's going to be this frame, this frame, this frame, this. He broke it down into a concept. He said, this is what it's going to look like. And then he was able to hand that off. He was able to even hand it off to someone else and go, here, you finish it.
Benny actually said it. Can I-
Doesn't matter. The idea, whether Benny says it or not, at the end of the day, as the leader, you didn't feel the need to hold on to your vision. You were able to go, here, you're the leader now, or you're the person undertaking this task. I don't have to be the one who's doing the task.
Ultimately, I thought you made it worse.
That's not the point. It might influence Harry's decision, but that's a whole other. Do you see how there's a legitimacy to leadership? Leadership isn't just about who's in the position of leader. The legitimacy of leadership, we have to ask a question. Do you have to be the nominal leader, the person in position to be the leader? Shh. Okay? And is legitimacy required for leadership? Now, legitimacy comes from a couple of very specific places. There's legal legitimacy. In this classroom, I am the legal authority for giving legitimacy to people. I gave you authority. I gave you that position, and I gave you that position. It's a legal position within the framework of this class, within the rules that I established, right? But then there's traditional legitimacy. We were talking about kings before, right? King to the king's son, to the king's son, to the king's son, or, the high priest to the high priest's sons, to the high priest's sons, to the high priest's sons. Creates legitimacy. But that doesn't mean they're going to be good leaders, right? Now, there's the charismatic leader as well. You guys have seen these people. You've seen them, right? The person who's able to get up, and the thing that gives them legitimacy has absolutely nothing to do with legally whether they're supposed to be in charge or whether they've traditionally they're the people who would be in charge. They are simply able to get up, and somehow people look at them and go, hallelujah, that's the person I want to follow. Because they're charismatic. That's, you tell me, which one would you give him?
Probably.
Mix.
Is he the legitimate leader based on some law?
Oh, no.
Was he the legitimate leader based on some sort of tradition? No, he was charismatic. Now, there are other ways we can look at legitimacy. Legitimacy can come from elections.
He was also somewhat a religious figure.
Right, so he also has ethnic identity and religious basis for his leadership. Right? I don't know if he has so much historic, but there are people who do have historic leadership, right? Because of history, I have no legal basis, it's not traditional, but if we look historically, we should be the leaders, or I should be the leader. Okay? Right? I'll give you an example.
No, I'm serious.
I'll give you an example.
During like the slaves, white people, just because they're white.
That's the argument that's being made right now. That's one of the major arguments that's being made right now by Black Lives Matter, is that concept of underlying illegitimacy of the black movement into power needs to be broken. But it's based on history. It's based on a historical perspective on who's legitimate power. There are white people who believe that whites should continue to be in power. They exist. Okay? So good leadership suggests two things. One is both ethical leadership. The other one is effective leadership. What's the difference? Can you do something that's ethical but not effective? Can you do something that's effective and not ethical?
Yeah.
when that happens, sometimes you look at someone and go, oh, he did it though. He got the thing done. I don't care how he did it, right? Have you ever seen that happen? Where like, you didn't care how the person got the job done, but the job got done. And afterwards you find out they broke a little rule, or they didn't do it quite right, or whatever, but they got the job done. Do sometimes people get a pass for that?
Yes.
Yeah. And the other way around, someone who goes super ethical, but not so effective. I won't do this. It goes again, even if it means we don't succeed. I'm not going to do that. How often does someone get a pass for that?
Not as much.
Not as much. Isn't that interesting?
You know, people, have you ever heard the story of, it was like in World War II, it was like, I don't know, whatever, two countries were fighting, I don't know which ones, it was Christmas Day, and then they all went to the middle of no man's land and started giving presents and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It sounds like World War One.
Yeah. They're not supposed to be
It's-
doing that, but it's ethical, you know?
Right. But the question is, to what ends? At the time, there was a Christmas Day ceasefire. So it allowed them to do that. But my question is, what does good leadership look like? Do you think it's a good leader who sits there and isn't so ethical but gets the job done? Do you think that person's a good leader? More often than not. In fact, more often you'll see that person and go, all right, I can accept the fact that he's not so ethical, but he gets the job done. I would prefer someone who's ethical. I would prefer somebody who does things the right way, not just get done what needs to get done. Make sense? So this is a big part of good leadership. The ethics question. That's a question of doctrine. It's a question of culture. Right? Yeah?
No, I'm just thinking. I feel like this is like Trump and like Joe Biden. Like one's more ethical, one's more, well, not effective, but like less ethical and gets other things done. Like everyone does.
So there's a question over here that takes place about what needs to happen and how it's going to happen, correct? It's a function of these two. When you look at it and go, Shalom, Shalazo, Shalazo, תצריך משהו? No. Okay. If it's a function of ethics and effectiveness, sometimes ethics will drop off. Sometimes effectiveness will drop off. But when we look at good leadership, we very often associate that with the combination of the two. And it depends on what culture we're talking about. There are places where we would look at it and go, that's not ethical. And they'll go, what are you talking about? It's perfectly fine. Can you imagine that happening? Can you imagine that happening? Right? So if we want to look at the basis for power, basis for leadership, one of the questions is, what is the legitimacy? What's the basis of legitimacy for that person to be the leader? Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think that in the real world anything's ever fully ethical? Like,
Ever fully ethical?
yeah, like you're saying, like, I prefer to be ethical, but like, you keep giving me examples. Like, I feel like in the real world, like in real jobs, like in real politics, everything, like, it's just to get the job done.
Are ethics not subjective?
Like, the lines are blurred.
Ethics are completely subjective.
Exactly.
You also gotta define ethics.
Define ethics.
So you can. Well, someone's morals, but each person has different ones, so it's like nothing's ever.
Yes, but there is a cultural basis for morals. Like we look at doctrine, we can say, here are the major brushstrokes of what the moral system looks like within which we're working. It's not okay to lie, but then when you guys were getting raised, you probably heard your parents say, you're not allowed to lie. And then you heard them tell a white lie. What did that teach you?
I can lie. Sometimes.
How much? Right? And therein lies the crux of this question. A leader who's mostly ethical, truthful, or honest, good person, follows the rules, and is mostly effective, generally is perceived as a good leader. Mostly. Do I think there's an absolute function of ethics? I believe there is. I don't believe humans can hold by that standard. I just think we're capable of it. We're not even capable of it when we're alone in a room on our own.
Capable of what, sorry?
Holding an absolute ethical standard.
So is this kind of like last week when we spoke about, like, even if you're not effective in like completing the mission, but like group members like enjoy the process, like that would be considered like the ethic.
It might be. It might be. Hey, we didn't do this, but it was a good. We made a good effort, and the fact is that we upheld what we thought to be right and good and true and worthwhile,
Yeah. Okay.
and that made the process worthwhile for us. We didn't accomplish our mission, but man, we gave it our all. We did everything we could to give it our all, and we did it within what we considered to be an acceptable doctrine. Makes sense? Does it make sense? Okay. So this is one way to look at leadership, is a question of, well, who says you're the leader? Is it a position leadership? Is it based on some kind of tradition? Is it legal? Is it based on some kind of tradition? Is there some other basis for it in terms of your legitimate right to say, I'm in charge?
Isn't that the only way you get in charge? Is if you say it?
No. Someone else can say you're in charge. I put Harry in charge.
No, but then you're not actually, you might not actually be in charge. You know, like someone can give you a position, but you might not actually be in charge.
You probably have more legitimacy if someone else tells you you're in charge.
Well, it depends on how. If we're talking about elections, then in some way you would think yes, right?
Telling you that you're in charge.
But what if it's the boss of the boss who decides that you're now the manager of that group? What if other people thought that someone else should get that position? They're like, you know what? Sherelle should have been the nominal leader there. Right? But the boss of the boss decided, because he likes Josh and they go out and play basketball together, goes, you know what? Josh is going to be the leader.
What's that called? Bias?
It's a bias. Well, there's a lot of things that it's called.
Bribery.
No, there's a word for it, cronyism. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. Good job. This is one way to look at leadership, through the lens of legitimacy. There are other ways to look at leadership as well. Another way to look at leadership is through the lens of power, right? Power and leadership. Now, we have here two people, Raven and French. They give us 5 different ways to look at power and leadership. You have what's called referent power. Referent power is based on a follower's identification and liking of the leader. I like you, and therefore I'm going to let you be in charge. I'm going to let you be the one who guides this process. I think that you're a good person. I think that you will have good ideas. I think that it's worthwhile for me to follow you. Can you give me another name for that we use today?
For what?
A referent leader.
Influencers?
Yeah. Right? Do they have any power? Do they have any basis for their power?
Basis?
A legal basis. Is there any legitimate, let's go back. Think about influence for a second. Think about influence for a second. Legal, traditional, charismatic, maybe. Habits, historic, religious, ethnic identity, results.
None of that.
Maybe identity, maybe you'll see yourself as part of their group. Identity in that respect, right? Maybe it's habits, but what habits? The fact that they have good habits, or the fact that we've always followed that person, so let's follow them? Because that's what they mean when they say habit, right? You don't follow, but how do you start following someone? Why would you follow them in the first place? Bored. They look cool, right? Okay, so maybe they're charismatic because they look cool. Maybe they're charismatic because they look cool. But honestly, if you think about it in these terms, you're talking influencers use and utilize the basis for their power is completely a referent power base. It's based on the idea that people look at them and go, I like him. I like what he does. I like how he talks. I like what he talks about. I like how he presents. I like him. Or her. Then you have expert power. Somebody who, when you see them and hear them talk, they obviously are very knowledgeable in their field. And you go, okay, I'm going to follow that person because they've got a clue. They know where we're going. I'm going to shoot you, and I'm going to shoot you.
I'm playing a game actually.
Okay, fine. Talk to me about it next time.
Ask me at any point.
I don't want to. I'm sure you will. I'm absolutely certain. I'm absolutely certain that you will. Okay? This is about their competence. You see the person as a leader And I'm not talking about a manager. You see them as a leader, as a thought leader, as someone who has good ideas, someone who's presenting their ideas well, someone who, because they are so knowledgeable, they give you the sense that I could ask this person a question about this, or about where we're doing, or why we're doing, and how we're doing, and they will be able to explain it to me. They'll be able to break it down and give me real understanding of what's going on and why we need to do what we're doing. All right? Legitimate power. It's associated with having a status, a formal job. This kind of power, it's what I gave to Josh. It's what I gave to Harry. Right? It's formal power. It's a formal status of this person is in a position. It's legitimate. Reward power. I also gave this to you guys. You didn't use it very well. Could Harry have turned to like Benny and been like, Benny, if you don't get a move on, I'm definitely giving it to Al. Right? And you could have definitely said to the ladies, listen, if you don't get a move on, I'm going to tell him to take 2 points off. Could have said that.
It would have also been different had you said it in the beginning.
Because?
Because then you have an incentive to actually do it.
Well, he said in the middle, there's still an incentive. They just didn't.
Right. So you're saying it would have been different had I started it at the beginning, because it would have maybe made everybody think, wait a second, do I really just want to sit here, or do I want to get actively involved? Right? But reward power is huge. The capacity to reward others. Now, very often, there will be leaders who don't have that in terms of their leadership. They don't have the ability to reward. Then what do they do?
This is like someone who gives a bonus,
Yeah.
so that's like reward power.
Yeah. I can reward you for doing what with my kid who learned how to make, poo in the potty. If you make poo in the potty, you get a chocolate chip. I can't convince him to make poo in the potty. Obviously, I might be an expert at making poo in the potty myself, but he's not taking, at 3 years old, that advice very well. I have the legitimate right to say to him, go make poo in the potty. Is he going to listen? No. But this works. So that's the basis for that relationship, that part of my relationship with him.
Or coercive.
How do you coerce someone to make potty?
Well, punish.
Every time you make in your pants, I'm going to stick your nose in it. That's what you do to a dog, right? People do that to their dogs.
But it works.
It would be very much be child abuse. I would agree with you.
But it still works.
I'm not so sure it would work with a kid. It might work with a dog.
Why?
I'm telling you,
Like shock collar?
dude.
No, I'm thinking how shock collars work on dogs. So it's like a similar idea.
Yeah, just put a shock collar on a kid.
So coercive power, it's the ability to punish people, right? It's the coach who will sit somebody if they don't do their job. Yeah.
What do you think is the most effective?
That's a question. It's an interesting question. And I think the answer is it depends on the relationship. It totally depends on where what the followers see as the basis for. Remember, this is about the follower's perspective,
Yeah.
right? Some coaches don't need this. Al, you played sports, right? What sports? Hockey. Did your coach was his basis of power here, there, or up there? What was it that made you okay following him? Now, at the beginning, almost 100%, the answer is this one. He's the coach.
Wouldn't it be an expert?
Well, at the very beginning, the fact that someone's a coach does not make them an expert at the sport. Okay? Right. So the first place that you're going to find your coach's power, and you're going to appreciate that power, you're going to go, okay, he's in charge, is going to be there. And then it comes here. What kind of reward?
Not though, because if you're doing well, then the coach will put you either on a better line, so you're playing first, or I don't know, will allow you to play the position.
Wait, but then once you get on a better line,
Like
then
if
you
you're
change
doing
your course.
well, if I'm doing well in defense, like very well in defense, and like I'm showing him that I'm doing well, and then I say, coach, can I go in for one game and play offense? I want to try. He'll put me in, but if I'm playing awful,
He won't even let you do that. He won't give you that reward. But the question is, from here, what's the most likely move you're going to feel at the very beginning for the coach?
from where side?
From legitimacy. What's the first thing you're going to notice about them? In terms of the power, where you're going to listen to them or not listen to them. Just whether you're going to follow their vision, follow their instructions, do what they think is right. From here, If they don't show expertise in their field, are you going to follow them? Less likely. Now, what would you...
There's usually a player that comes that knows a lot more.
Oh, and who's he? Where is his basis for? Expert and possibly this, right? And you go, I'm going to follow what he says. Right? I'm going to do it.
Almost all my coaches, for me, it's been reference power.
Why?
Most of the coaches.
They weren't necessarily experts. They weren't necessarily great. And while they might have been the legitimate person in charge, the reason you were willing to follow them was because they seemed like really cool people.
But I think also, I mean, me personally, I think I started a few coups on some teams. So
Okay. Do you guys see? Does everybody here see how these bases of power work and how they're based on the follower's perspective? It's based on the follower's perspective. Does that person have the legitimate right? Does that person have the ability to reward me or punish me? Now, in fact, it will be a little bit of all of these in some ways, but there's going to be a predominant one at any given point in time in the relationship, right? It may start at this and then move to that and then move to something else along the way. Do you guys see how that works? It's not an absolute. Sometimes it is. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes that's a legitimate, that's the person who's legitimately allowed to, set vision, dictate events, get us going. And does that mean that people are going to follow? Maybe. Maybe not. Which leads us to this next concept that we've been talking about, which is, well, what about emergent leadership? What about that person who, starts the coup? What about that person who they were not in any way, shape, or form given a position of power, but they showed supreme expertise in the field, or they were really charismatic, or there was something about them that you went, oh, I like the idea that he's presenting. I'm going that way. Yeah.
Would this be considered emergent leadership? I was on a team, and this kid was really good, and then after I don't know how many games, maybe even halfway through the season, a captain gets elected and two assistants, and this kid was obviously the best. He was the leader of the team, and so we decided as a team to give him the captain. Is that emergent or is that a sign? Because
Okay.
he emerged as the leader, but then we gave him the position.
Okay. So I would say that because of what happened, he emerged as a leader, and that as a result of his emerging as a leader, just like will happen sometimes in a democracy or in a business, people will go. I'm going to take it from a different perspective. Right? It's like this. You're in a job and you're on a team. Okay? You're in a job on a team. And the boss comes in and goes, all right, we have a position opening up for team leader on this other team over there. And I would like to figure out who should be that team lead. Who do you think should be the team lead? And he's going to interview you, 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 and as he goes through this, if he does a really good job, he'll do a 360. What's a 360? He's going to talk to every person on the team. He's going to talk to the leader. And if it's a mid-level position, he's also going to talk to anyone who is underneath who felt leadership from somebody who's on this level, right? And he's going to say, okay, who's the best person to put in? Who emerged as a leader? But that person essentially got democratically elected and they got positioned from somebody else entirely. The boss decided at the end of the day. So you're saying at the end of the day, we elected him, but the coach didn't have to accept your election. He could have chosen whoever he wanted to be captain, right? So if the coach could have chosen whoever he wanted, when he does that, he puts the C on the guy's chest. He's now given that person legitimacy of leadership. Maybe. But if he's smart, he's going to choose somebody who's emerged as a leader. Why? Because when it gets down to the nitty-gritty of the game, he wants somebody that the people are going to follow. Okay? So emergent leadership is a process in which an individual, and I'm actually going to take this to a unit of some kind. Because sometimes it'll be a group of people. Sometimes it'll be a group of people. Sometimes it'll be a group of people, but at some unit, Their actions are perceived as influential and resulting in a positive expenditure of time and energy by everybody else. It's worth our while to follow them. They're leading us in the right direction. They're giving us a good future vision. Ay, 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 ay. The eye. Ah. Right? And this doesn't depend on who's been assigned as leader. There are times when someone gets assigned as captain and someone else ends up being the captain. And there are times when somebody loses their captaincy because the coach doesn't like how they're leading or where they're taking the team, but the team is going to follow them no matter what. You guys seen the movie The Mighty Ducks? Okay. If you've seen the movie The Mighty Ducks, in Mighty Ducks number 3, right, the new coach who comes in takes away Charlie's captaincy. Takes it away from him. Did that mean that Charlie wasn't the captain? Nope. Everybody was still going to follow Charlie. One of the ways you can sometimes hear about somebody who's an emergent leader, they'll talk about them as like the heart of the team. They'll actually talk about them in those terms. They'll use that terminology. This is the heart of our team. This is the person who makes our, like, the blood flow in our team and gets us going. This is the person who, when the tough, like, things get tough, he or she doesn't just pick up their own weight and other people's weight, but they'll help other people pick up their weight and help them understand how to better do. Okay? And it's something that happens over time. It's very rare that someone, whoop, that person emerges as a leader. Now, in the function here, it was a short amount of time, and nonetheless, you start to see the first like grains of emergent leadership. Even here in the 7 minutes that I gave you guys, 8 minutes that I gave you guys to do something, you start seeing the first little bits of it. If we were to have to do this again and again, if I were to keep you in these same groups over time, what would happen? A leader would probably emerge, right? Somebody who's more often the person who dictates vision and is able to get people going. And he probably is not going to be Harry and Josh. Probably not. So there are a lot of different models that will explain this. If you'd like to look into it, there is a reading in the syllabus that will show it to you if you're interested. This is a very important concept for us. Because more often than not, this is the real leader in any team. In business, very often, you got the manager, and the manager's great at the resourcing and stuff like that, but people hate him. Very often, people hate the manager. But there is somebody in the group who is able to overcome that hatred and somehow work with that person in order to get things done and help everybody else get things done. Who's the more powerful, the manager or the leader?
Probably the leader because people respect him more.
Well, if you look at it through the lens of rewards and coercion, rewards and punishments, then the manager. Right? The manager is the one who gives the bonus. The manager is the one who gets fired. The manager is the one who gets to say whether you get to, you're going to give you a good report. Manager feels threatened by a leader. What might he do to the leader? By an emergent leader, he might give him a bad report or fire him.
The manager feels threatened by the leader? Oh yeah, a lot of times. You're talking about corporate jobs. Leader being lower down than the manager.
Yeah. I'm saying where someone is emerged in leadership in.
Because corporate is a ladder, so if someone's below you and they're coming up, you don't want to lose your job to them.
You might feel threatened by it, right?
Usually you do.
Yeah, go ahead, Harry.
A lot of times, like, let's say like a corporate job or something. I mean, I don't really know, but like, are there really any incentives for someone to be a leader if you're on like a lower level and like there's really no.
If you want to work your way up.
Not necessarily. Even if you want to. I know people who are phenomenal on their team. They've been on their team for 10 years. They've been offered promotions 15 times.
Yeah.
And they have said no. Because when they move from that position into a position of management, now they have to deal with the stuff they don't want to be dealing with. The money and the scheduling and the budgeting and they don't want to deal with that stuff. They don't want that position. They don't want the extra responsibility that comes from moving from the tactical level into the operative level of operative level position. They liked the maneuver. They like helping people maneuver and getting things done. And okay, you guys are going to take care of this task. I'm going to take care of that task. And we're going to get this done together. Let's go. But they don't want to have to sit there and figure out, well, do we have enough resources? They want to go to the manager and go, all right, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we do it. These are the resources we've got. Great. Let's go. There are people who do that. I know somebody who moved up, realized she hated that position, and took a $50,000 pay cut to go back down. She's much happier where she is. Right? It sounds crazy. What? Like, that's a lot of money to give up every year. But she's happier as the leader on a team. And everybody knows that she's got those qualities. Everybody knows she's great at what she does. Everybody knows that they can go to her as an expert in her field, and she will guide them and get them moving when they hit a path, when there's an obstacle in their way. They know it. But she doesn't need to sit in that position to be able to do that. Not at all. Okay? Now, here's where this all gets really interesting. Maxwell comes and says there are 5 levels to leadership. Base level, position. That's the person who, when you're, the first time you're going to become a leader in your group, really going to become a leader is when you get in the position. Not because you've been voted in or everybody likes you, but because the coach said, this person is actually really good at what they're doing, therefore I'm going to make them captain. Right? So it's not that we're talking about it's not that we're talking about the lack of emergent leadership. It's not what Maxwell's talking about here. He's not saying there's no emergent leadership, but he's saying that first role is still going to have position, is very often going to have position to it in a hierarchy. The person who becomes the team lead, the person who's recognized somehow by the institution, by the organization, as having that kind of responsibility and needing that kind of responsibility. As you move through these, right, you want to have people move and understand, right, that they are now moving out of that first role of position, which is more managerial, and into real leadership positions, right? That first one is because they want people to follow, and they work hard to get permission from people and have them be their followers. They make the effort. They go that extra step. They show an interest in their team, and that gives them permission to come up with some crazy ideas and be like, hey, let's do this. This would be great. It'd be awesome. Okay? Now, if you think about it, the person who gets positioned is very often going to get positioned based on this concept, based on the tasks that they accomplish. How skilled are they at the techno-tactical? Someone who's really, really skilled, what do you do to them? Promote them. Someone who's really skilled, move them up. But if all they are is really, really skilled, they're going to get stuck there. If all they're good at is typing the code, but they're not good at the interpersonal reaction, if all they're really good at is shooting the gun and breaking down the doors, but they're not really good at getting the team to work together, once you get people working together, it changes. Suddenly you have leadership start to take place. And when that happens, we see the movement upward as one that's going to depend on where they are in the hierarchy. When you hit the operative level, it's no longer about whether or not you can get the team together and motivate them and maneuver them the right way. Now it's whether or not you can get the people to get things done. And that's something which people notice. Right? That's what will get you up to that managerial level, that middle management level. You're not just capable of the skills of the techno-tactical thing. You're not just good at, making sure everyone's feeling good and making sure everyone's getting, able to, work together as a team, but you're also skilled at hitting objectives. Making sure the team hits objectives. Does that make sense? Someone at this level is going to be setting priorities. One of the things they're going to look at is that they're going to look at about 80% of the time is on the tasks that are in their strength zone, the things that they're good at. They're going to spend about someone at the production level is going to spend about 80% of their time on the things that they're really good at. They're going to spend about 15% of their time on things that they need to learn. Okay? But when you hit that level of leadership, where it's not just about, okay, we have a good relationship and everyone wants to follow me, but we're getting things done. 80% of that time is going to be focused on what am I good at? And then what do you have to do for the rest of that? What do you have to do with the things that you're not good at? What do you have to do with the things you're not good at?
Delegate them to someone else who's good at them.
Delegate them. Hello. And 5% of that time, you're going to work outside your strength zone. 5% of that time, you're going to go, you know what? I'm going to learn. I'm going to figure out what I'm not good at. I'm going to get better at it. Okay? But you can't start doing that until you know you've got people who are on your team who you can trust. You can't do this until you've done that. It doesn't work. How do you delegate to people if you don't have a good relationship with them? Can you trust them? They're going to get the job done? So what'll happen is someone new will come onto the team. Why is anyone going to follow this leader, a leader who's at this level of leadership? Yeah. Why are you going to follow them? Because not just that, but because they seem to be pretty good at getting things done, right? Remember, if we go back to here, let's go back for a second. If we go back here for a second, is it about that one or that one?
If they're being productive, it's effective.
Yeah, right? Do you see it? The very first part of this is going to look at effectiveness in some ways. They're going to go, all right, they're a good person and we have a good relationship. Someone new comes on the team, the thing that's going to make them willing to follow is first and foremost, well, the team's really good at getting anything. Like, this guy's really good at getting things done. You know, this lady's really good at getting things done. Okay? There's one downside to this, if this is the kind of team leader you have. What happens when the team leader leaves? Why? You suddenly lose that core of who's guiding this process, who's the person who's driving this forward. What?
No, so if they get to stage 4 with people development, then they're able to kind of coexist out direct.
Right. So when you get to people development, right, at that point, I'm going to see where you're at developmentally. I'm going to help you develop. And if you can do it 80% of the job, as far as I'm concerned, you can do 100% of the job. I'm willing to take the 20% risk. It's a leadership level where I've developed enough that I can now see where you're at, and I know enough to be able to go, okay, you're 80% there. I'm taking this. I'm going to take that 20% on me. Most of the time here is not on my own strengths, my own skill, my own things that I need to get done. It's definitely not on those 5% of what am I. It's very much about saying maybe 70 to 80% of the time, I'm spending my time coaching people. I'm spending my time looking at, oh, how you going? What's going on? Where do you need help? Oh, have you thought about, you're doing a great job. Coaching, part of coaching, is about helping people with the skills that they're having trouble with. But that's only a little part of what coaching is. Right? Were you on a team? Any kind of team? Yeah, what kind of team? Okay, did your coach spend most of their time sitting there correcting your stroke? The whole time? What did they do the rest of the time? Right? So if he had spent, or she had spent her whole time sitting there going, your stroke's horrible, your stroke's horrible, your stroke's horrible. Or had set out here's what your swimming schedule is for the day. You have to do 200 warm up. You have to do, 400 IM, 400 IM, 200 back, 200 back. This is the schedule. Go. And then she comes out and checks on you guys like, how's it going? How you feeling? How's it, right? The coach's job, more than anything, is not to just correct minor skills that you're having problems with. They also have to do that. But most of their job is encouraging you. Most of their job is delegating to you and letting you do for yourself. If you got it 80%, do 100%. The other thing that's going to happen at this level is the person's going to spend maybe 20% of their time on their own productivity. That means 80% of their time they're going to be worried about how's the team doing. And only about 20% of the time they're going to sit there and go, well, what do I have to get done? Because I don't have to get done, because I can delegate. Right? We've created a team at this point where I have trust. I trust you enough that things are going to get done. And then you got the respect leaders. Someone who reaches this level of leadership, when they leave the company, when they leave the team, they could walk back in 20 years from now and people will still know their name. 10 years from now. People will still know who they are. Somehow they create a legacy for themselves, whether it's because the people who they trained will tell stories about how they got trained by that person who got trained. They create a legacy for themselves. Okay. And someone who reaches that level, we look at them and we go, it's not about what they did. I mean, yes, what they did was important, but it's about who they are. And people just respect them for who they are at that point. Now, is this absolute? No, it's not. Absolutely not. It can't be. Right? Not everybody's going to go through these like this. Someone can jump from nothing to respect. It can happen. Someone can go from nothing to a people development person. Nothing in between. What? This, in a formal organization or an informal one? In a formal organization? So, let's say that someone's a startup. Okay, they start with a small group of people. Right? And very quickly the startup catches on and everything's going, and they're no longer, they're not even doing coding. All they're doing is letting other people do it. They quickly jump from position without permission, maybe into permission, and then from there almost to respect right away. They don't have to do the other ones. Other people are doing the other ones for them. See it? And you know what? In groups, it happens more often. Like, forget institutions, but in groups, you go from you don't even hit, there's no position, right? You get permission, right? The person who's really good at making sure everybody has a good time. And then you don't really need the production one unless you're trying to do something very specific as a group, right? But you can definitely go to the people development one next and then to respect. So it's not going to be absolute. People can jump from place to place. You might skip one. In an institution where it's a clear hierarchy, then there's it's more likely that you're going to move through these in a linear fashion. More likely, but again, not absolute. Okay, someone might be really productive and be really good at the production and skip the permissions part. It might negatively impact them for a while until they learn those skill sets. They might not be great at creating the atmosphere, but once they do, boom. It's good to go. All right. Any questions? Anything so far? Sweet. I will see you all next week. See you later.